So, I think we were almost done here with axiology. Were we not? Or did we get there? Having a real confusing time with these two classes. Did we talk about that? Rationalism, empiricism. I think we got to that, right? No, that was sorry, that was the other one. Metaphysics? Yeah. Does anyone have anything down about? Say louder. Okay. I think we got to the next one, epistemology. Were you here? I think you missed today, did you not? Were you gone Thursday? No? Because I remember talking about empiricism, rationalism. Remember that? Yeah? Okay. But we didn't get to axiology, maybe. Did we? How much do you have then? Right. Okay. Okay. If I'm repeating myself, then just let me go or tell me. Because I'm going to try to kind of start where I think we are. Yeah. So under axiology, values. What do you value? I mentioned about the lottery people. How about that? Yeah. Pretty sad, huh? If you can find that, I bet it's on YouTube. I mean, it's been a while ago it was on. But you really kind of see where people's values are, you know, in a, like I said, in an amplified way, because all of a sudden they're just handed a big pile of cash, you know. And the psychiatrist thing I was telling you about, he said now people who start, you know, who start with nothing or just kind of start normal, just and they start a business and they build that business and it becomes a $200 million business, or they have that kind of money in the bank. That's different because they built character along the way, getting to that point many times, right? Whereas just being handed the money, here it is. People tend to react differently. This particular, I don't know if it was psychologist or psychiatrist, was really against this lottery idea, you know, of just handing people these large sums of money because it rarely did any good for them. I guess they're spending the money, so it's going into the economy, you know. But of course, then those people many times become a drain on the economy at the end because they get in over their heads. But anyway, let me see here. So questions here. I'll say these again if I've already said them. Are there any values that are better or superior to other values? Right? Are our values better than, you know, tribal values somewhere in some remote area of the world? Are their values better than our values? Are one religious faith values different, better than or superior to others? And you know, in some ways, wars have been fought over this kind of thing before, believing that some people are not human, you know, that they are less than us. I remember, I think, Ty, we had this, in fact, you and I did here in class about if we could go back in time and kind of be there on the loading platform of the train, you know, at Auschwitz, we probably wouldn't say, oh, I really want to learn more about these people because they seem to share a different type of values than what I'm used to. And I'm sure if I just learned more about them, I'd understand why they're doing, you know, and then maybe we probably wouldn't do that, but we would, more than likely, we would just know that this is wrong, and not just based on our own upbringing, our own values, but just know that somehow universally this is wrong, just to send innocent people to the death chamber and other people to be worked to death. Yeah, okay, so I do remember that now. Good. There are two, this is not the only, but two kind of subcategories that come up under axiology. That is ethics and, aesthetics. And you can kind of maybe see where the ethics part fits in. With ethics, we are talking about morality, whatever that morality is, and conduct. Ethics is really the combination of these two things. Morality, and then do you conduct yourself according to that morality? Then you're acting ethically. Yeah, that would be an ethical person, an ethical way to live according to this code of values. Is it possible to learn, let's say, Christian morals and learn them, take the class, take the quizzes, take the tests, make hundreds on everything, but still be an unethical person? Yes. You're all thinking of somebody right now, aren't you? You almost want to tell me right now who it is. You're bursting. Yeah, there was this one guy. Right. So yeah, it's possible to know what's right or to have been taught what's right or learned and put it in your head and regurgitate it and then just not live that way. That's, yeah, you can make a really good grade in the class. Hopefully, that's why we don't have really a class on morality. Do we have a class on ethics, where you hopefully learn to apply these things. But of course, the application of it is really up to you. So it involves both sides of that, morality and conduct. Aesthetics, though, is it's a little more difficult, is the way that we judge certain things, the way that we evaluate, especially things like, well, sorry, let me back up. The way that we judge things that are created, the way that we judge things that are made or created. So let's just say you go to see a movie, but before you go see the movie, you look online to see what some movie critic said about that movie. And the movie critic's already seen the movie, and he gives his review. He doesn't like it, and you either decide still to go or you decide not to go. And let's say you decide to go, and you really like the movie. Has that ever happened to you before? Or maybe somebody, not just a professional movie critic, but a friend of yours said a movie is really not that good, but you go to go see it and you liked it. Has that ever happened? Maybe. Other way around, you told somebody, a movie is really good, and your friend goes to go see it and says, that was terrible. Yeah. Or maybe you've gone together with somebody and you've seen the same movie at the same time, and when you walk out, you're like, I really like that. And you're like, I thought it was terrible. Right? That happened. So you've made this aesthetic judgment about this created work, this movie. You may feel the same way if you go to a museum. Have this experience a lot of times taking kids overseas, and some kids will kind of become enamored with a certain kind of painting or one particular painting. Other kids just wander right by. It doesn't really grab them at all. Something else grabs their attention. Yeah, that's a good way of saying what appeals to you. But some things that are created, though, like this work of art or a movie, some people may, I haven't heard anyone say this, but some people may drive through our campus here and think that the building is really ugly, like all that brick sticking out and jagged, and I don't know what happened there, yeah? They don't like that. most people seem that I've talked to, maybe they're just being nice to me, but they think it's really beautiful. But maybe some people wouldn't think so. You know, I was watching just yesterday about a art dealer in London who deals. I shouldn't say a dealer. He's more of like a broker, I guess, and he works with very high-end clients who hire him to come look at their home, which is already beautifully decorated. But they're wanting to enhance it somehow with some other work of art. So this guy spent this. I mean, it's not a bad life, really, if you're into art. This guy spends his whole life going to galleries where things are for sale, going to places where they produce different things, even like real unique, like lighting fixtures and things like that, one of a kind type things. Just anything that go inside of a house, outdoor seating, just all this. And so he's looking at the marketplace all the time, and then a high-end client calls him and says, "Come take a look at my estate, my manor, my castle, whatever it is, and tell me if you can enhance it somehow, you know, with what you've seen out in the." And he makes money, you know, in the middle by being this kind of consultant. Yeah. So he has to get an idea from the owner of the place, the house, whatever, huge houses, whatever it was, by going through their home, kind of get a sense of what they're into, what they like. And then he takes a few weeks or so and he goes out and he goes around. And actually, this guy was really pretty, like, he's all over London. He goes to Amsterdam. He was in France, all for this one client. And then he comes back and brings with him, kind of on consignment, I guess, these works. And the guy decides, or the person decides if they want to buy it or not. So that's a whole bunch of aesthetic judgments going on in there. This guy's aesthetically judging what he sees in the house already, what he aesthetically thinks will be pleasing, that he can bring to it from what he's seen out in the marketplace. He has to go out and get it, bring it back, and then kind of maybe convince the owner, you know, as much as it's up to him, of course. But in this case, it was for Lord Jacob Rothschild. You know that family? Yeah. You know that? Yeah. They've been in the news a lot lately. Not the news, but like the alternative news, I would say. All right. Regardless of where they are in the news, they're worth hundreds of billions of dollars, yeah, maybe more. And so it's quite a good client to have. If you're in this business and you're, yeah, okay, that wouldn't be bad. But you know what he sold him? I said that for a reason. What he found for him, he said there was this, because Lord Rothschild had like a gallery built on his property, separate from his castle that he lives in. And it's this very modern looking gallery, but it's private. It's just for him. It's just for his family to go into. And of course, and then outside there was kind of a patio in one area. And what he ended up getting for this guy were these chairs. Like, I wouldn't call them chairs. They were weird. I can't even explain them. But they were round and they could roll, like you could turn around in them, but they were like perfectly balanced, you know, where they looked like a I don't know, like a top, you know, you spin a top, you know, but they had an indented part on the top of them, you know, where your butt could go down in there. But they rolled, like, so when you were out of the chair and the breeze would blow, these chairs wouldn't go away. But their weight is, they kind of like blow in a circle, you know, and that's what Rothschild wanted. And of course, they were super expensive, and everybody's happy. Everyone made money, you know. Anyway, chairs, yeah, you can judge the aesthetic value of a chair, or I don't know if you call it a stool or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't really a chair, not the way I think of chairs. Okay, fine. I had a group of students in Berlin, and there's a museum kind of right in the middle of town that all they have there are Picasso paintings. It's like 4 stories. It's a straight up and down building, pretty narrow, but 4 stories at Picasso. In the basement, they have part of the gallery. They have some of Picasso's proteges, and those are pretty interesting to look at also. But everything else is Picasso's. It may be the largest Picasso collection, or one of the largest. It has to be. I mean, I don't know how much he painted, but this was an incredible collection. And so I gave the kids, you know, I kind of gotten pretty good at judging how long young people want to stay in any museum. You know, even if there's like something really famous to see there, you know, there's a time limit on this. So it was big enough, and I said, hour and a half, you know, and if you get done early, go to the gift shop, and if you get done early, hang around outside or something, we'll meet you. And so I had been to it before, but I'm on like the 3rd floor, and it's kind of an inner atrium, and I'm looking down, and I see one of our students down there, and no, I was on the 2nd floor, and I look down, see one of our students down there, and he's already done, you know, he's already gone through it all, which would be an athletic feat, first of all, but he did it somehow. But so I finish, and I probably go through quicker than everyone else because I've seen it, and then I go downstairs, and I was like, hey, did you go all the way through? Yeah, saw everything. All right, well, good. What'd you think? He said, well, it seems like a lot of square, naked people to me. I said, yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it. You got it. I'm just kidding. That's terrible. But I thought it was a pretty... I knew he'd gone through the thing then at that point, you know, that he'd actually seen. Because there were a lot of nude square people, I noticed. No SpongeBob, though. I didn't see that. But... All right. So when we make judgments, let's say about a work of art, this interesting things happen. Maybe you take the advice of a movie critic and you don't go see a movie, but maybe more commonly, you have been maybe kind of enculturated through society, through what you've been told by a variety of sources, many of them probably reliable, that there are a few painters out there. There's a handful of painters from the past, maybe from the present, but mainly from the past, who are the masters, right? We hear that term, master painter. And they are the masters. And those masters are the ones that we should revere. Those are the ones you should go and, you know, if you have a chance to see some of their work, you should go. Picasso probably be one of them. And let's say you didn't know anything about that at all. You never heard anyone talk about artists or their names or what they painted or what they were famous for, or what era or what style. You didn't know anything about that at all. Nothing. And I go to this art gallery where they're having what they're calling, I don't know what they mean by this, a Masterworks series there, exhibition. And somehow, Brock, you got a painting. Mrs. Sartain worked it out, so I don't know. She's got friends in high places. She got your painting you did in high school put on the wall between a Renoir and a Monet painting, okay? Yeah. I don't know you from Monet, or, you know, Caravaggio. I have no idea. But I'm walking along, and I'm looking at these paintings, and the one that catches my eye is the Hannigan. I like the Hannigan. I call the guide over. Who is this? I really like this painting, man. Guide's confused. I don't know how this calls on the radio, you know. Apparently it's a 12th grader from around the corner. This is a Philbrook in my mind. I'm not really sure how that got in here, really. I think it's just beautiful. I don't know. I haven't been like guided by other people's influence, you know. Possible, yeah, that I might like your painting better. I don't have money to buy it, but maybe it's cheap. $50? No, not cheap. Huh? I would expect nothing less. Good. One other branch of axiology, and this is one of the reasons why it makes it such a huge field, is social and political philosophy, which of course could be its own class altogether. In fact, in college it is its own class. political theory, political philosophy, all that. But we'll just kind of throw it in here quickly. Early on, we're going to talk about some of these people here just shortly. Early on in the Greek world, during the time of Socrates and before the time of Socrates, you had a different kind of educational system. You didn't have a place like you guys come to today and meet with me in a classroom, but it was basically homeschooling, but the parents didn't do it, though. I know they didn't do it online back then either, I'm pretty sure. But they hired I don't know what to call it, a teacher, a tutor, whatever, that would come into your home, actually would live with you in the home, and would teach the young men, sorry ladies, shouldn't be any surprise, long time ago. They would teach only the young men of the family, and the wealthier you were, the better tutor you could hire. A teacher who had a really good reputation, maybe even a reputation throughout the Hellenistic world, and you could be, you could brag to your friends at cocktail parties about it. Well, swirling your drink. We've got Callicles at the house now, and it's really something. Like your parents might brag about you going to Harvard next year or something, right? I mean, like an Ivy League level Greek guy living in your home. I don't know. All right. So, but these tutors, these what they're called sophists. Part of the word philosophy is in there. Sophia means wisdom. Sophists, what do we call them? Well, they're wise guys, is what they are. They're wise guys. Not like mafia wise guys. And they didn't stay with one family for very long. Like 6 months would have been a long time for them to stay. They might have stayed shorter. They worked with the kids. Of course, the family's got to find another tutor to come in then. And even Augustine did this kind of teaching, kind of in a way, not quite just with one family, but with a handful of students he would meet with. Anyway, so it went on for quite a while after this. But but during this period, I'm talking about before and during Socrates' time, these teachers would move, and they wanted to move around. Like they didn't want to stay in any one place for too long. Not because they're vagabonds, but because they felt like they learned more themselves by living in different communities. So they're teachers. They're also philosophers. We'll get into that later. They're traveling teachers, I should say, philosophers, and they moved around very often and lived with different families. And one of them, who's quite well known, and was a contemporary of Socrates, his name was Protagoras. He said something that seems like just common sense today, but things that are common sense today, well, somebody had to say it first, right? Someone had to say some of these things first. So when we go back to this era of time, you find a lot of these people who said these things first. And Protagoras, after traveling and seeing a good deal of the world that he knew, he noticed that people in Athens do things a bit differently than people in Crete, and people on this island do things a little bit differently than they do on Patras or Corfu or some other place in Greece. They just do things differently, but like justice and their criminal justice system and their rituals that they do and their customs they have in families and all. And even like within families, things are different. Maybe you've had this experience of you spend the night at someone else's house and that family just does things differently than your family does. No big deal, but you notice it and you move on. But he noticed that things are sometimes quite a bit different. Maybe in Athens they cut your hand off for stealing. But if you're on Corfu, though, they just don't cut you. They just kind of give you a slap on the hand. Don't do that again. Warning. Second time. But anyway, Protagoras has this quote, homo mensura which means man is the measure. But he didn't mean this just for cultural or political or social things. He meant it really across the board, that the individual person is the one who must judge all things for himself or herself. The individual person is the one who must judge things for himself. And that judgment is that person's judgment. That's just what they think.
So it means the individual person
must judge all things for himself or herself. And that judgment that they have, whatever that is that's true for that person. Certainly that person in that culture. And so maybe in Athens, they got a real problem with stealing. And so cutting off someone's hand really curtailed stealing. I don't know. In Corfu, not so much. People were laid back up there, and they just let them, hey, come on, what's the deal? Why are you stealing? Are you hungry? What do you need? You know, they treat it very differently. Right? But it works in Athens, what they're doing, and it works in Corfu, what they're doing. And so just like two people maybe shouldn't argue for too long about their different judgments about things, Athens shouldn't try to impose upon Corfu or Crete or some other part what they feel like works best. They've decided for themselves what's best. Maybe they celebrate in the ritual way, different religious holidays or whatever you call it, differently than other places do. Yeah? Maybe they think politically a bit differently. You know, that's fine. They've made that decision. They live in that culture, in that city state, or whatever, and that's their judgment. So what begins here with Protagoras is actually a pretty important thing, a thing that we're still and probably always will be talking about and dealing with under axiology, and that is this debate between relativism, which is what Protagoras is promoting here, and absolutism, that somehow things are absolute. There's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And relativism, kind of at its extreme, say, no, let everybody do what's best, because man is the measure. Each individual man, meaning each individual human, makes their own choice, makes their own decision, what's right, what's wrong. I guess if you don't like the way things are in Athens, you know, things are too strict, maybe you might steal someday, you might want to move to Corfu. I don't know that that's true. I'm making up, there's a place called Corfu, but I'm just saying that they maybe did things differently there. But because these teachers traveled so much and lived in the homes of people and really got kind of on the inside of what daily life was like for these people and for others, they really had I gave one to Maddie.
I don't.
Graves?
Yeah.
No? I don't think she's in here.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So.
Is it 210?
Yeah. Well, it's all the road. It's all double checked.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is where this begins, and this will be an ongoing discussion. Still is an ongoing discussion. We'll even talk about it more in class. But through these traveling teachers, philosophers, we learn this. Okay, one other thing under social and political philosophy would be what form of government works best? What form of society do we want, and how does that society, come together? How does it get synthesized with the kind of government that we have, the kind of economy that we have? What form of society in general is best? Another question that comes up, and really a lot of political arguments, about policies, not about personalities, but about policies, come down to a discussion about giving people more liberty or more autonomy, or restricting people in some way. Or not just people, but maybe businesses too. So you got some company who's dumping toxic chemicals into the Arkansas River. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm not saying it's not happening. But they do have some big fish in the Arkansas River. But so maybe government comes in and says, hey, you can't dump that stuff here. You've got to, I don't know what you do with it, but don't dump it here though. Yeah. And so you restrict that company from acting that way, from conducting themselves that way. Then some people would argue the other way. Yeah, well, not only do I think people should be able to have AR-15s and maybe even automatic weapons, but if a person can afford a tank, damn it, let them have a tank then. That's okay. Right. So maybe some people would be more, I don't know.
Form of society is best
Government. Yeah, when I say society, I guess I was trying to catch everything. Government, economy, and how that the people, how that kind of synthesizes together. Yeah.
There was only one question.
Yeah, what type of society is best? Do we give people more liberty? Or do we restrict people more in certain areas? Those are the questions that come up under this political philosophy. So, yeah, you hear sometimes a lot about government regulations, and that's usually referring to corporations or to companies. They're going to regulate them on maybe ecological things, or perhaps, who knows, any variety of things. And of course, that costs maybe that company more money to comply with some of these regulations, and they're going to maybe kick and scream before they finally, agree to it. But yeah, so we're gonna, and then sometimes they lift a lot of regulations and allow them to do whatever they want to do in that particular area. Yeah, liberty versus restriction, right? Okay, I think that's it about those three groups. Let me just start briefly. What time is it? One more time? 45, good. So, I'm going to talk about this first group. We'll probably get to the first person, but about this first group of people who are the West's first philosophers, and they do come out of the Greek world, and they are called the Pre-Socratics. You may see this spelled differently in different places, but that's okay. But the Pre-Socratics. Socratic, referring back to Socrates, and pre, if you don't figure this out already on your own, pre meaning before the time of Socrates. Is that pretty clear? Oh, okay. Good. Number one finger means I'm being sarcastic. Okay. Before the time of Socrates. These guys I'm going to talk about are not the sophists. They come a little bit later, but the Pre-Socratics. And Western philosophy, of course, we already know, begins in the Greek world, not of all of what's Greece today. The Hellenistic world expanded quite a bit to the north of what we think Greece today, and to the east of where Greece is today, at least at the time we're talking about here. But basically, the Pre-Socratics is really the only date that I want you to know. It's a range of dates. They lived and worked between 600 and 400 BC. 600 and 400 BC. And I'll give you other dates, but just to only kind of maybe just show that we're moving closer to 400. Don't forget we count backwards here with the BC dates. So, of course, then generally before the time of Socrates, so that's obvious. Yeah, well, the Pre-Socratics lived and were brought up in a very theocentric world. What is That's a great word for next year. Theocentric. God-centered, right? Or gods-centered. I don't know, plural, huh? Centered around the gods. Eh? Everything was centered around the gods. Any questions you had about the universe or the world, the answer was really quite simple. It's that way because the gods want it that way. Why does the sun rise? He said, well, I'll tell you. Apollo pulls his chariot. Yeah, everything was explained by the gods. Everything was centered around the gods. And everything could be answered by invoking the gods, and somehow they're involved. The gods that the Greeks worshipped were, not all of them, but most of them, though, were very, at least in appearance, at least in the way they were shown to look in art and sculpture, they were very human looking. You know what I'm talking about? Zeus looks fairly human. He's, pretty buff, but he's still human looking, right? Now, not all of them. I realize there's some that we call this, though, anthropomorphic. Or anthropomorphism. Right? There we go. I'll make a little. I can see. All right. Anthropomorphism is a noun where we attribute human characteristics to something that's not human. So what God is not a human, but we attribute kind of human, for two arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a nose, a head on top of your neck, and up on the shoulders, and they look human. They're humanoids. So while they appear to be human physically, at least the way they're portrayed, they differ, of course, from humans in their power that they have and the authority they have in a certain realm, a certain area of the world. So you have people who see gods look like humans, and they live in a world that's really centered around the gods. And again, the world was the way it was because that's the way the gods want it to be. And the pre-Socratics come along and say, we're not atheists, but we want to explain the world naturally, not strictly by what the gods want or by godlike intervention directly.
What was this?
No, I moved off of that. That's okay. The pre-Socratics now, their approach was, in the beginning at least, was to try to explain the world naturally, not in a theocentric way, that gods are doing everything behind the scenes to make it the way it is, but to give a very primitive kind of scientific explanation to things. And I say that because in a lot of ways, the pre-Socratics don't seem like philosophers all that much. Some of them seem a lot more like primitive scientists, without big microscopes and all the equipment you have today. They're relying upon the only thing that they have, that's observation, what they experience, what they see, what they can observe. So they're hoping to, I'll say it this way, their attempt is to explain the natural world with natural phenomena. Or even better, explain natural phenomena with other natural phenomena. And this begins really, at least in the West, a very kind of scientific approach. So a person, a scientist today could be a devout Christian and no problem there, but he's not looking, he may be thankful and amazed by God's ability to create things when he realizes what's going on, let's say with an anatomy or genetics or something like that. But he's not looking for God in the microscope. He's looking to see what causes certain things, what sets us in motion, what makes this happen, what makes this reaction. And that doesn't make him less of a Christian or less of a believer. It makes him just a better scientist. So that's really kind of where we are, I think, today, or a lot of people. So not to confuse the two things. They developed what's called a cosmology. This is their cosmology. This is the study of the universe, the cosmos. Yeah? And their cosmology is referred to as naturalism. Again, trying to explain the natural world with other natural things, as opposed to theistic things. Naturalism. I saw a school of cosmology the other day here in Tulsa. It was interesting. I thought about stopping in there. It was weird because they were also giving $5 haircuts. And on the outside, they had like a picture of a person like getting their nails done or something on the, School of Cosmology. I thought it was interesting.
Do answer.
I didn't tell a joke again, maybe.
Do-
What? What?
I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm trying to confuse you. Maybe with the mask down, it works better. I drove by this School of Cosmology. Watch out the window now. And they were giving $5 haircuts there. And picture on the outside of a woman like getting her nails done or something. I thought, well, maybe I should do some field research there for the
like
class.
cosmetology.
Oh, that's what it was. Oh. I was driving by kind of fast, you know. Maybe I should slow down. Okay, all right. That was an expensive joke, really. It took a lot of my time to deliver it properly. Steve Martin, I mentioned earlier about the philosophy question. He had another joke. He said, comedy is all in the timing. Yeah, so careful. Tough crowd. You know what the difference is between you as my audience and the audience at the comedy clubs I work at nighttime? One thing, only one thing. What is it? Because they're laughing at me all the time. Not you guys, alcohol. That's all. It's the only difference, alcohol. Yeah. So let's think about that, okay? I mean, not as a plan, but you know, not officially as a plan. All right. Still, just rattling these jokes off. Nobody. Top of my head. Yeah. And the serious questions keep coming. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Yeah, anthropomorphism. Throw that around next year in college, or looking for it.
I'm confused.
Okay.
I said I would have to do this like live here to be human, and I'm
Okay, so it's taking anything that's not human and giving it human qualities. But in this case, it's the gods, the Greek gods. We do this in Christianity too, I think, maybe in your head at least, right? Your idea of God is not like a nebulous blob of vapor or something, or, right? I mean, maybe it is, I don't know. But it's something more human-like. It's a pretty natural thing to do, I think, to want to think of your God and anthropomorph. What do you call it? It's another in literature, personification. You know that? That's a more literary term, yeah. But okay, within philosophy or man, right? Anthropology, things like that. Humans. Anthropomorphism. Morph, change something. Take the gods, make them human. All right. Good. Last thing I'm going to ask you then to think about is why Greece? Why does philosophy begin in Greece? Why not some other place? Why not Egypt? Egypt was pretty advanced in a lot of areas, mathematics in particular. But it was a rich society, a lot of wealth. You think why not there? Why not in Judea? That was another place where maybe it could have started. Yeah, why not there? Why Greece of all places? What's special about Greece? Anyone? First of all, has anyone ever been to Greece before? One person. Where did you go? Do you remember? All over, or you go all over, or just one place, or? Did you like it? No. Is that the only place you went to?
Yeah, we went around.
Okay. Yeah. You know, if you get down to the islands and south of, of the mainland, it's just beautiful. Like, I would go there right now. I don't blame Tom Hanks for taking dual citizenship there. Do you know that? He's a Greek citizen. He's a U.S. Greek citizen now. Do you know that? Ever heard that before? Yeah. You know why? They didn't like he went and applied for it, you know. There was a fire outside of Athens. It killed 100 people. That's actually a lot for a wildfire. If you think about, the number of people who die in wildfires in California, it's terrible, anyone's. But a lot of destruction of homes, of people actually dying is pretty. But 100 people died. It's just 2017 or so. And he has a home in Greece on an island somewhere where he can act like a normal person, I guess, there. And his family and his wife is Greek. Rita Wilson, his mom. They're Greek Orthodox Christians. I mean, he, in Greece, on television, he brought awareness to all the destruction that had gone on and helped raise money to rebuild, bring relief to people and all that. And so then a year or so later, the prime minister of Greece came along and like in an honorary, as a thank you, gave them all honorary Greek citizenship, which is really, all that means is you bypass all the, hoops you got to jump through to become a citizen normally. Yeah, there you go. No one heard that before he became a Greek citizen? He's a U.S. citizen, he has dual citizen, he has both passports and all that. Oh, well. Tom Hanks. When you see that Mr. Rogers movie, that was real joker. See Mr. Rogers movie with him? You guys don't get out very much, do you?
I don't know the name.
It's like you're living in a quarantine or something. Bring a drum up there, would you? And a cymbal. Thank you. A crash cymbal. A really whack it. Then you'll know it's time to go. Oh, and you know those lights like they have in a TV studio that says like, laugh, applaud. That would help maybe. See you Wednesday virtually. Think about why Greece, why philosophy began in Greece, not some other place. Anyone going to photography right now?
No.
Or to the PAC? No. All right.